All right. Thank you very much, Daniel. Good to see you all again. I think I was here last year, and there's twice as many of you here as there were last year, which is great to see. I'm going to endeavor to get us back on track and give a talk in about 3 minutes and see if I can catch up on the schedule. But yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about our platform and the work that we've done with some of you here. So my name is Spence Green. I'm the CEO, and our business is, we serve all kinds of different industries that are doing global content, and we started working in this community about 4 years ago with the Bible Project during COVID, actually, when they were ramping up their digital evangelism, and it's kind of spread from there. But we work with large companies like Intel and Bloomberg, and with government agencies like the National Weather Service. And what's really cool is that the technology applies across lots of different domains. And so I think you get in working with us, you get the benefit of a commercially proven technology that's got lots of R&D in it from private sector customers. Okay, so I'm going to talk in 3 parts. I'm going to talk a little bit about some new stuff with our company and how it works. I'll talk a little bit about some of our work here, and then I'll give a little bit of a future-facing view for, I think, what's coming next. So like I said, I think the reason that people like working with us is we're founded and led by researchers. Both my co-founder and I met working on Google Translate a number of years ago. And we started the company because Google didn't use Google Translate for any enterprise applications, and we thought we should fix that problem. And so we've been building these AI solutions for a very, very long time. We build all of the technology that we use, so our platform is built from the ground up, from the models all the way through the software, and then we have linguists as well. We think that an all-in-one complete solution is better than a piecemeal solution for outcomes like quality. And then for some of our customers, and this has actually become a thing in the past year, organizations, maybe not this community, but a lot of organizations are starting to care a lot about where their data and models are. So we give you complete end-to-end control over all of your organizational information. Okay, so I mentioned that our solution is complete and end-to-end, and so it has 4 parts. It has the platform itself, which you can think of as a model building platform. It's got a lot of tooling to be able to help you build fine-tuned models for very specific use cases. We have a generation function as well now, which we didn't have last year, where you can generate new content in other languages. We have a very robust set of connectors, so all of the customers we work with, we connect directly into their enterprise systems. There's no emailing back and forth. And then finally, we have a great team that many of you have worked with to help you scale and build these workflows. Okay, so when we think about enterprise content, we break it down into 3 different buckets. And the first bucket that we think about is verified content. And so I mentioned that ours is an end-to-end AI platform. Many of our customers, including those here in this audience, have various requirements for the output of the AI models. And those could be factuality requirements. They could be brand requirements. They could be regulatory requirements. And so we have both tooling, and we can augment with human linguists to give you a quality guarantee on the translations that are created or transcreation. So this is more creative content. And that verification process is also what drives model fine-tuning. So you can also think of it as data collection. And we have some customers that just use the verified function effectively as data labeling to create custom models. Once you've got those custom models, you can use them for what we call instant translation, which is what you think it is. There's no human looking at it. There's no quality guarantee on the output. And so we have a set of applications and APIs that you can then access the custom models that were trained by people that you can use for different applications. And then the thing that we've added, which we're really excited about, is content creation, which I'll talk about a little bit, which is now that you have these fine-tuned models and you have a bunch of in-domain data, you can use a large language model to generate new content. And this tends to cut down new content creation by about 90%. So instead of waiting for a translation process, you can generate a new blog post, let's say. We have a lot of people using it for support and training documentation right now. And what we're really excited about is curriculum development. So when you have a bunch of enterprise information and you want to generate a new article that will help somebody understand how to do something, you may not have the same quality standards for that, and it can be challenging for people to sit there with a blinking cursor. And if you can overcome the blinking cursor and just generate something new, that really accelerates content creation. So this is all built together in the same platform. And the way that we have always built these workflows, on the left is the way that people have traditionally used any type of AI model, whether it's a machine translation system or even the early days of like GPT-1 or GPT-2. You would generate something, and then you would send it to somebody and have them correct it, and that would basically be it. And there was no feedback loop to go back in and do training. So our approach has always been, first of all, to cut out any sort of manual data transfer and build workflows directly between systems, people, models, and data. And so when we work with customers, we integrate directly into their systems. We pull the content out. It goes through an AI model. There's an iterative process whereby if it's a verified approach, a linguist will correct the output. That goes into a model builder to do fine-tuning. We've got a new product coming out, which we call AI Review, which we just launched last week, actually, where we now have AI systems that can review the output of what the people did for an additional layer of correction. And then that goes back into, we reconstruct the files and put them back to where they came from. And this all happens in one sort of continuous workflow that you can build directly in the platform. So if we go a layer deeper, we just last week released our models, which we call 3.5. And these are about 6 times larger than the models that we had this time last year when I presented. And they're trained for the first time with reinforcement learning. So we used to do supervised fine-tuning, and now we do supervised fine-tuning with reinforcement learning on top. And the way that that works is we have the baseline model. It goes through a prediction step where a human linguist will correct the output, and then that goes back into the model for continuous training. And for those of you who have used it or looked at it, you see this happen actually right in front of your eyes. So there's no sort of process where it goes off and you wait a couple hours and you train a model. It happens continuously while the workflow is running. And so that's all been operationalized in the past week or two with our new models, and the results are really great. So this is just a little bit of technical information about them. They're about 1.3 billion parameters, which you would say, wow, that seems really small relative to these 200 or 300 or 500 billion parameter models. I think the way to think about that is you don't need as much broad knowledge for the translation task. And I think the real thing to think about, and we'll talk about this later when you're thinking about what's coming next, there's a performance cost component of this. And so if you can build very smaller sort of single-digit billion parameter models that are very focused on a specific task, that helps a lot with model accuracy. And boy, does it make the cost really efficient, which is what we do with our business. Like I said, you build these models, and they turned out to be really, really great. So the gray bar is the models that we had this time last year. We had an interim model that we were working with in the fall, which we called V3, which we didn't end up releasing. And then V3.5, which we just released last week, gives you about 10 to 15% performance improvement over what we had just 1 year ago. So the pace of innovation is really, really fast right now. I think that's broadly true across AI, but that's partly a function of there's more compute available, there's more data available, the tooling's getting a lot better. And so we'll show how these translation quality results translate into some of the work we've done on actual cases in just a minute. And this is a chart showing some of the other model providers. And the point here is that when you can do supervised fine-tuning and reinforcement learning on actual use cases, so take a broad model and narrow it down to a specific use case, you get significantly higher accuracy relative to even like a big model like GPT-4. Okay, so now I'm going to talk, that's our company and our product, and let me talk a little bit about some of the work we've done. So the first one is with BiblioNexus, working on the Aquifer project with Ben and Thomas, who I think are both here. And we're using the whole platform here. We've just delivered a bunch of work in the current quarter, like I said, for the Aquifer project. And we've got combinations of our linguists and people reviewing on their side that are domain experts. Certainly some fine-tuning work that we've got going to try to get the quality to the right level. So I think, if you sort of think like AI's completely solved the problem, you should talk to Thomas and Ben. There's plenty of work for people to do left, I should say. And so that's a really exciting project where it's starting to get to a reasonable scale, and we're looking across 5 or 6 different languages here, some of them high resource, some of them lower resource like Hindi. And this shows the accuracy. So we compute a metric in our platform which we call word prediction accuracy, which is simply the fraction of words that the AI system generates versus the fraction of words that people correct. And so if you look at the baseline model and then the fine-tuned model, you see about a 10 to 15% accuracy gain, which is what we see in other domains as well. So this is consistent with what we see in commercial domains. And in general, where these models are right now is AI doing about 90% of the work and people doing about 10%. And that's up massively from a number of years ago when we released our V1 models, which were the first transformer models back in late 2017, early 2018. This figure was around 40%. So the models have gotten considerably better. My suspicion is that to go from 90 to 100 is much harder than going from 45 to 90. So there's still a lot of very important creative work that people are doing, and I think that just says like you really should be doing customization and fine-tuning. That's really what gives you the best outcomes, and that's where people really come in. Okay, so that's BiblioNexus. Like I mentioned, we went off the bottom of the page there. So we've been working with Bible Project for about 4 years now. That's kind of our longest running project in this community, and they started during COVID. This must have been, I met Mike in like 2020, early 2020, something like that. So in Donald. And a lot of the work that you see in the Bible Project in other languages we've done over the years, including a big Spanish language experience that they just did in the last 6 months, I think, that we did, and has all gone through our platform. And a lot of the, when we started with the Bible Project, we didn't have like anybody in our linguist community with any type of theological or pastoral training. And so all of the sourcing and development that we've done over the last number of years, like we still got work to do to build out that talent pool. But I think we've got kind of I would think maybe the largest community of people, of general freelancers online that have done this type of work, working with us right now. We have scoured the world looking for these people, including in low resource languages, which is, for example, the work that we've done with Biblica. We had this Balochi project where we found like one speaker of Balochi somewhere. I don't even know where we found this person to translate the book of Daniel. And now we're scaling this up to some other languages as well. So, and I think what's really, really cool about the contextual learning is that for low resource languages, it really works very well. For higher resource languages, it takes more data to move the model in a certain direction. But for the low resource languages where you don't have much data at all, the models can very quickly lock on to a specific use case. They may not necessarily generalize very well. Like a model fine-tuned for Bible translation would probably be terrible for translating a news article, but it'll do that job really, really well. And so you can get a lot of mileage from just having a small amount of data. So I think this is Michelle and her team doing this work. So we're really grateful for these partners. I think we've all learned together in these projects. It's a pretty different domain than what we work in commercially and even in the public sector. But I think it's important work, and somebody joked with me, like if you get into translation, you end up working with the church and the army, and we work with both. So that's where you kind of end up, I think. Okay, and these are some of the partners that we've worked with over the years, building out this community of linguists and models and data. Okay, as promised, I've only got 15 minutes left, and I'm gonna finish up quickly. So I was sort of thinking about like if I come here, if we're all here convened next year, what are the things that we might see in the next year? What would those things be that I'm excited about? And I'm not gonna like prognosticate way far into the future. I think that's actually quite hard to do right now, given the level of research and investment that's going into AI. It's just very difficult to predict what's gonna happen in the future. But it's not too hard to see what's gonna happen in the next year. And I think one thing that I'm really excited about is moving from translation to generation. So you'd be really surprised. You can write an English language description of something, and assuming you have a fine-tuned model and some data, you can generate a surprisingly good piece of new content, whether that's text or video, immediately without going through a translation step. And there are lots of applications where that is going to dramatically increase access to information. So we've got this working on our platform now for about 30 plus languages. We got a lot of work to do to make it really robust. And we've got workflow tooling around it too, so you can generate stuff, and if you don't like it, you can send it off to somebody for verification. We've built in model provider choice. We have customers who are really interested in experimenting with open source models, so we can do that for you if you want. And then we've got the fine tuning to human feedback. And there's a lot of open-ended work to do here. So I think this is going to be, in not even a year's time, but in 6 months' time, this is going to be a solution that people really find a lot of value from relative to just trying to do translation all the time. Okay, so that's generation. Some of you might have seen this one. So these very long context windows for low resource languages. So last year, Dan Jarafsky's lab, he's a linguistics professor at Stanford, there was a paper about this machine translation one book benchmark. And this is kind of a classic sort of Dan Jarafsky paper, which is you take a linguistics field manual. When you go get a degree in linguistics, they send you off to like Papua New Guinea or somewhere, and you go live there for 6 months writing down a descriptive grammar of a language. And then usually these things end up in a library somewhere. But it turns out what you can do with this descriptive grammar is you can just shove the whole thing into a large language model with a lexicon, and having never seen that language before, in this case, Calamang, which doesn't appear anywhere on the internet, you can get a surprisingly good translation model. And so the results, this actually was in the Google's Gemini 1.5 technical report that they showed to demonstrate the efficacy of using a really large context window. And I think, there's some things, I put a star next to it because it's not a written language. There's this Latin script orthography that is in the grammar. And so would this work for, non-Latin script languages or other things where you're sort of generating things outside that are even slightly technical in nature? Like, could you just generate a Calamang New Testament using this method? My suspicion would be not very well. But it's worth trying. But I think that these long context windows, you can very quickly see there's going to be a world where you just shove a whole description of the item that you want to generate into the input, and that will massively improve the quality of the output. There's some cost associated with that and some performance associated with that, but I think that will all get solved. So I'm really excited about that as well. And then the last thing is multimodal. So I think, there are these videos like of Javier Milei going viral on X/Twitter, and there are a bunch of these video translation and dubbing apps with voice cloning. These seem to have really captured people's imagination. I think there are a lot of questions about, sort of the legality of voice cloning and copyrights and things like that. And so I think you'll see enterprise versions of these, and my suspicion would be that these technologies, we'll certainly have this in the platform in the next little bit. There'll be versions of these that are just enormously useful as we live in this kind of TikTok world where people prefer to consume video. This is going to be really a medium that will broaden access to information. Okay, thank you very much.